Hi, my name is Mike Fargnoli, and I'm part of the EPA Campus Rainworks Challenge for the 2015 Master Planning category. As part of a group project, we decided to tackle a larger site that's integrated into a much larger watershed. We spent the first month or so analyzing the impacts of climate change over the next 50 years and projecting different ways on how to mitigate those changes. After that phase, we moved on to searching the campus for the most plausible sites to redesign and where to implement these individual changes. So part of the master plan category requires a watershed scale implementation of individual components such as green roofing, rain gardens, and overall infrastructural improvement. And so this is the starting off point for our individual project. There were 4 other members besides myself, and we began by analyzing the Duck Pond sub-basin within the much larger Spring Creek watershed. This watershed is especially important because it holds some of the most pristine spring waters in all of Pennsylvania. They've been labeled Class A trout streams and are nationally renowned for the types of trout fishing that can occur here. But one problem that's plaguing these pristine spring waters is the increasing urbanization, especially in State College and the major cities in the major watershed, such as Bellefonte and Pine Grove Mills. So as part of the Campus Rainworks Challenge, we had to focus on Penn State itself and the sub-basin that it is within, which is known as the Duck Pond watershed currently. Our vision was to change this entire watershed in a way that actually inspired people to rename this watershed the In Situ watershed, inspired by our new sites known as System In Situ. This name was first derived because we started thinking of the sub-watershed as an entire system. But this entire system is currently draining to one site within the entire watershed itself. So it seemed only right to tackle this specific site while in unison improving watershed scale infrastructure. So we began looking at campus possibilities, and because of the major financial burden some infrastructural improvements can incur upon the stakeholder, Penn State would have to improve larger areas in comparison to the much smaller income families in the surrounding town, the borough of State College. But both parties can do a lot to improve infrastructure over the course of the next 50 years, which is what we projected as a plausible timeline to implement a 95% low-impact development improvement. The reason these things improve the quality of water itself lays its terms to the specific type of infrastructure. So rain gardens help to sequester certain contaminants on a residential property scale, whereas a green roof might help to hold water by allowing almost an inch of infiltration on most extensive green roofs. These little changes, when incurred over time, can improve the amount of quality that these stormwater runoff systems are exhibiting. And so, in combination with these small improvements, we also brainstormed the idea to improve the existing duck pond as it is, which is currently just a sedimentation pond where there's constant water flowing from the utilized spring, Thompson Run, that passes through the nuclear power plant on Penn State's property as a way to naturally cool the nuclear systems there. So there's a constant flow of water coming through the site, which keeps the sedimentation pond filled and slowly overflowing just by the top layer as sediment settles to the bottom. So this site, while works passively without storm events, as soon as the slightest storm comes through, anything larger than the typical state college storm, which is just below a 1/4 inch of rain, tends to flood the site and encourages the mixing of this stormwater runoff with spring water. Going back to the Class A trout streams that I mentioned earlier, this mixing it severely denatures some of the qualities of this natural spring water. The list of things include thermal pollution from the water just sitting in this open pond, the duck pond. Another is the contaminants that are picked up from this increasingly urbanized landscape. And the contaminants include heavy metals, some as detrimental as lead. This, of course, it hurts the downstream habitat and the ecosystems that occur there. The biggest thing right now is sedimentation, and that's why they built this pond in the way that they did, that allowed this constant overflow of just the top layer of water within the pond that has the most amount of sediment settled. So that remained a pretty large portion of our project. And then the last part was the overall improvement for plant life, animal life, and everything in between. And so we thought the environment most conducive to this improvement would be a wetland. Wetlands have been proven to be incredibly environmentally important because of all the benefits that come from them. The overarching improvement is water quality in general, and it comes from the sequestration of many different nutrients, and the wildlife and the biodiversity that it provides are all beneficial to the environment or the specific area that it entails, along with the adjacencies. So we thought it would be best to attempt to create the most natural artificial wetland possible. So this all starts with the implementation of individual components of low-impact development throughout the entire watershed, which will contribute to a lower amount of surface runoff that's infiltrating this area. The other part that we wanted to tackle was the physical improvements to the duck pond area itself. And so we thought it would be best to create this wetland as naturally as possible. So the only artificial improvement we've taken part of is the addition of this rounded weir with integrated risers to allow the same sedimentation pond to take hold in the forebasin. The sediment will filter out or settle to the bottom of the basin there, just like the current duck pond, and then the water will be allowed to continue to trickle through these risers throughout the rest of the site. This trickling action will create riff erosion and eventually lead to an area towards the end of the site where an island is centralized to create two smaller diverging paths that are shadowed by the overarching vegetation. This tackles the problem of filtering the contaminants through the wetland that slowly develops in between through this natural erosion over the course of 50 years, while also improving the thermal pollution aspect that has been so detrimental with the pond itself. The forebasin improves the sediment control before it even hits the wetland, and then is thus improved through the impact of the physical vegetation. Towards the end of the site, there's the mixing of the stormwater runoff with the spring, and over the course of 50 years, we project this to be just as high quality as the spring water here in central Pennsylvania, thus being more conducive and conserving the natural downstream habitat that has been so crucially important to the development of this geography. Thank you.